My husband left me for his executive assistant and said Sloan understands my ambition. I signed the divorce papers without raising my voice. 6 weeks later, his largest investor called me and asked why a company valued at $90 million didn't legally own its only patent. That was the day my ex-husband finally started reading the paperwork. My name is Maya Collins. I was 34 years old, a biomedical engineer, and one of the founders of Vantage Surgical Technologies in San Diego. Vantage made a device called the NovaSeal system, a handheld surgical instrument that sealed internal tissue without staples. It reduced operating time, limited bleeding, and made certain emergency procedures safer in small hospitals without specialized equipment. Business magazines called it Ethan Cole's revolutionary invention. Ethan was my husband. I was the person who invented it. 3 months before our wedding, I built the first working prototype in the garage of my mother's house. I filed a provisional patent application using $12,000 from my savings. At the time, Ethan worked in medical device sales. He understood investors, hospital executives, and publicity better than anyone I had ever met. I understood engineering. When we started Vantage, the arrangement seemed perfect. I'll build the product, I told him, and I'll make the world care, he said. For several years, he kept that promise. Then Vantage became valuable, and Ethan began acting as though the person standing in front of the cameras had also been the person standing behind the workbench. Our company had 6 important leaders. Ethan was the chief executive, charismatic, relentless, and terrified of being seen as ordinary. I was chief technology officer, careful, analytical, and too willing to solve problems quietly. Ben Ortiz was our engineering director. He was loyal, practical, and hated conflict. Priya Shah was our regulatory counsel. She believed documents before people, which was why Ethan had gradually stopped inviting her to strategy meetings. Lydia Grant represented North Coast Ventures, our largest investor. She was calm, disciplined, and almost impossible to charm. And then there was Sloan Mercer. Sloan began as Ethan's executive assistant. Within 18 months, she became vice president of corporate strategy. She was 29, elegant, socially fearless, and remarkably skilled at giving people the version of themselves they wanted to see. To Ethan, she was the only person brave enough to dream as big as he did. To employees, she was the friendly executive who remembered their birthdays. To investors, she was the organized operator who could translate Ethan's vision into action. To me, she was the woman who began answering questions about technology she did not understand. The first real warning came during preparations for our Series C financing. North Coast Ventures was considering leading a $40 million investment round. The funding would finance a second manufacturing facility and prepare NovaSeal for international distribution. Sloan entered the engineering lab carrying a redesigned investor presentation. "We simplified the story," she said. Ben looked at the first slide. "You removed the failure rate data. It was too technical." The investors asked for it. They asked for confidence. I turned to her. "They asked for performance data." Sloan smiled. "Maya, you sometimes overwhelm people with details. The failure rate is 1.7%. Exactly. Why lead with a negative number? Because the industry average is 4.2%. It proves the device is safer." She glanced at Ethan, who had followed her into the lab. Ethan loosened his tie. "Sloan's trying to make the presentation accessible. I'm trying to make it accurate." "No one said it was inaccurate. The slide says NovaSeal has never experienced a critical seal failure." Sloan folded her arms. "We have never had a patient injury. That isn't the same statement." Ethan sighed. "Maya, not every sentence needs to survive a courtroom. This one may need to survive the FDA." The room became quiet. Sloan lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, I was only trying to help." Ethan immediately looked at me. "You didn't need to humiliate her." I corrected a claim in front of the engineering team. She presented it to the engineering team. Sloan touched his arm. "It's fine." The gesture lasted less than a second, but I saw it. So did Ben. That evening, Ethan told me I had become difficult to work with. We were standing in our kitchen while he poured himself a drink. "You assume everyone who disagrees with you is incompetent," he said. "That isn't true. You did it to Sloan today. She changed technical claims without approval. She was improving the pitch. She removed required data. You could have spoken to her privately. She brought the presentation into my lab." He stared into his glass. "She understands what we're trying to build. So do I. I designed it." "That's not what I mean." "What do you mean he looked at me? You understand the device. Sloan understands the ambition. It was the first time he said it. It would not be the last." 2 weeks later, Vantage held its annual leadership retreat at a resort in Palm Springs. I arrived late because a manufacturing test had failed. When I entered the conference room, Sloan was presenting our 5-year product roadmap. My roadmap. She had changed the title page and replaced my name with hers. I sat near the back. Sloan pointed toward an image of a smaller pediatric version of NovaSeal. "Our team plans to launch NovaSeal Mini within 24 months. I raised my hand. "The pediatric version hasn't passed the thermal safety test." Sloan's smile remained in place. "That's why the timeline is aspirational. You presented it as a launch commitment." Ethan interrupted. "Maya, we can discuss technical limitations later. North Coast is in this room." Lydia Grant sat beside the window watching us. Sloan said, "We believe in setting goals that challenge the team. A child's internal tissue is not a motivational exercise." Someone coughed. Ethan's face tightened. After the presentation, he pulled me into an empty hallway. "What are you doing? Preventing you from promising a product we haven't validated. You made Sloan look foolish. She used my roadmap. She organized it. She put her name on it. She leads strategy. I created the pediatric design." He stepped closer. "You always need credit." I almost laughed. Sloan was presenting my invention under her name. "And there it is. What?" The resentment. I stared at him. "You think I'm jealous of your assistant?" His expression changed. Not guilt, relief, as if I had finally said the sentence he had been waiting to use. "You've been hostile toward her for months. Are you sleeping with her?" He looked away. That was my answer. When we returned to San Diego, Ethan moved into a hotel. 3 days later, he asked to meet me at our house. Sloan was not with him, but her perfume remained on his jacket. Ethan placed a folder on the dining room table. "I don't want this to become ugly." "Then tell me the truth." He sat down. "I'm in love with her." The sentence hurt less than I expected. Maybe because some part of me had already mourned him. "How long? Does that matter?" "Yes, 4 months. The Palm Springs retreat had not even been the beginning." He continued. "Sloan believes in where I'm going. I believed in you before there was anywhere to go. This isn't about gratitude. No, it's about convenience." His jaw tightened. "She understands my ambition." I looked around the house we had bought after Vantage's first investment round. The dining table was covered with patent sketches from our earliest years. Ethan had once helped me label those drawings at 2 in the morning. Now he spoke as if ambition had entered his life wearing Sloan's perfume. "What do you want?" I asked. "A clean separation. From the marriage or the company?" "Both." There it was. He wanted more than a divorce. He wanted me removed from Vantage before the financing round. "The board hasn't asked me to leave. The board wants stability." Did Lydia say that investors don't want a divorcing couple running the same company? Which one of us are they asking to remove? He looked down. "We think your role can transition to technical advisor. He didn't answer. I opened the folder. The proposed divorce agreement gave Ethan the house, his Vantage shares, and full voting control over any shares held jointly. I would receive cash, a smaller investment account, and what the agreement described as my personally titled property and intellectual assets. Ethan tapped the final page. "It's generous. Your attorney wrote this." "Yes." "Has my attorney reviewed it?" "You don't need to make this complicated." I closed the folder. I'll have someone review it. His expression hardened. Maya fighting me will hurt the company. Reading a contract isn't fighting. You know what I mean. No, Ethan. I'm beginning to realize I didn't. The next morning, I hired Serena Park, a divorce attorney, who had previously represented a pharmaceutical executive in a complicated intellectual property dispute. She read the agreement twice. Then she looked at me. Does your husband know about the patent? Of course. I mean, does he know who owns it? The company uses it. That wasn't my question. She turned her laptop toward me. The United States Patent and Trademark Office listed one inventor and one owner, Dr. Maya Collins. Vantage Surgical Technologies was not listed as the assignee. I thought it had been transferred years ago, I said. Did you sign an assignment? I signed a licensing package before our first investment round. A license is not an assignment. She opened the company records I had legally retained as part of my personal files. The agreement gave Vantage an exclusive license to manufacture and sell NovaSeal in the United States, but ownership remained with me. The license required Vantage to meet 3 conditions. It had to pay annual royalties, it had to maintain accurate inventorship and ownership statements, and it could not sublicense, transfer, or use the patent to secure new financing without my written approval. Why would Ethan's attorneys leave it this way? I asked. Your first investor probably wanted the license completed quickly, while the company negotiated a formal assignment. Why wasn't the assignment completed? Serena found an old email from our former patent attorney. The company had postponed the transfer because of tax valuation questions and because I had developed the original invention before Vantage existed. The attorney had warned Ethan that a separate assignment would be required. Ethan had replied, "Understood. We'll handle the paperwork after Series A." He never had. Serena pointed to the divorce agreement. His attorney drafted this to protect all separately titled intellectual property. Probably because Ethan owned software he created before we married. Correct, but the language protects you too. He doesn't realize the patent is still mine. Apparently not. I sat back. What happens if I sign the— You retain the patent, he retains his company shares. The divorce agreement also waives future marital claims against separately titled intellectual property. Can Vantage keep using NovaSeal under the existing license? Yes, unless they breach it. I thought about the investor presentation. Ethan is using the patent to raise $40 million. Has he obtained your approval? No. Serena closed the file. Then don't interrupt him while he's making a mistake. I signed the divorce agreement. Ethan seemed almost disappointed by how little I resisted. At the signing meeting, he watched me initial every page. That's it? He asked. What were you expecting? A fight? You already made your choice. Sloane waited for him in the lobby. I could see her through the glass doors holding 2 coffees. Ethan followed my gaze. You'll understand eventually. I already understand. He took the signed agreement and left. The divorce became final 5 weeks later. The following Monday, I was removed as Chief Technology Officer. Ethan announced the change during a company-wide video call. Maya has chosen to step back and pursue personal opportunities, he said. I had chosen nothing of the kind. But my severance agreement prohibited me from publicly criticizing the company. Sloane sat beside him. She wore a pale blue suit and an expression of carefully controlled sadness. Maya's contributions will always be part of Vantage's foundation, she said. Our job now is to honor that foundation by moving forward. Employees sent me polite messages. Thank you for everything, wishing you peace. I'm sorry things became difficult. Within 24 hours, my name disappeared from the company website. A new page identified Ethan as the visionary behind NovaSeal. Sloane was described as the executive who transformed the invention into a global platform. I took screenshots. Then I did nothing. 3 weeks later, Lydia Grant called me. I need to ask you a legal question. I'm not the company's attorney. This concerns you personally. All right. Did you assign the NovaSeal patent to Vantage number? Silence. Are you certain? I'm looking at the registration. Our due diligence report says the company owns all core intellectual property. Then the report is wrong. Ethan provided an assignment summary. Did he provide the signed assignment? No, because there isn't one. Lydia exhaled slowly. We are supposed to close $40 million in financing next Friday. I know. The patent is the company's primary asset. I know that too. Does Vantage at least have an exclusive license? Yes, with conditions. What conditions? I think your lawyers should request the agreement from the company. Maya, I'm no longer an officer. I can't provide company records. Is the license in good standing? I looked at the website, calling Ethan the inventor. I don't know. 2 hours later, Ethan called. You spoke to Lydia. She called me. What did you tell her? The truth. You told her Vantage doesn't own the patent? It doesn't. We built that patent together. No, we built the company together. I invented NovaSeal before the company existed. You licensed it to Vantage. Yes. Then this is a technicality. Ownership is not a technicality. His breathing changed. You knew this during the divorce. I discovered it when my attorney reviewed the agreement you asked me to sign. You trapped me. Your attorney wrote the agreement. You should have disclosed it. You asked me to sign without a fight. Maya, this funding round employs 180 people. Then provide Lydia with the license. We need ownership, not a license. That sounds like a problem with your due diligence. He lowered his voice. What do you want? The question told me everything. He still believed every boundary was a negotiation. I want Vantage to comply with the license. What does that mean? Correct the false ownership statements, restore my inventorship credit, provide the royalty reports that are 6 months overdue, stop using the patent as collateral without permission. You're trying to control the company. No, I'm asking the company to follow a contract. Sloan was right about you. What did she say? That you'd use the patent to punish us? Us. He ended the call. The next day, Vantage's attorney sent me a proposed assignment. In exchange for transferring the patent, I would receive $200,000. The company had recently valued NovaSeal at $76 million. Serena read the offer. They think you're emotional. They think I need money. They think being left for the assistant made you desperate to prove you're reasonable. I declined. I proposed a new license instead. Vantage could continue using NovaSeal. The financing could proceed. But the company had to recognize my ownership, pay overdue royalties, appoint an independent compliance director, and stop presenting Sloan as the creator of technical work she had not performed. Ethan rejected it within an hour. Then the public campaign began. Sloan posted an essay online titled, When Personal Pain Threatens Innovation. She did not use my name. She described a former leader who had become unable to separate divorce from business. She wrote that women in leadership should support one another instead of weaponizing legal technicalities. Thousands of people praised her. Former colleagues sent me the post. One wrote, I hope you can find peace and let the company move forward. I did not respond. 2 days later, Vantage employees received an email stating that I was demanding millions of dollars and threatening to shut down production. That was false. I had not demanded millions. I had not threatened production. But Ethan understood something Sloan had taught him well. People reacted to the first story they heard. Ben Ortiz called me that evening. Are you trying to cancel the license? No, they told us you're seeking an injunction. I offered them continued use under almost the same terms. Why would Ethan say otherwise? Because compliance sounds less dramatic than betrayal. Ben was quiet. They're asking engineers to sign declarations saying Ethan directed the original development? Did he? You know he didn't. Then don't sign. They say refusing will be treated as disloyalty. That isn't a legal standard. It can still get me fired. I can't make that decision for you. He lowered his voice. Maya, they changed the heating element. What? Sloan hired a manufacturing consultant to reduce production cost. The new element runs hotter. Did it pass the tissue test? They skipped the full test because the investor demonstration is next week. My stomach tightened. Put your objection in writing. They'll remove me. Put it in writing anyway. The investor demonstration was held at Vantage's headquarters. Lydia attended with North Coast's technical team. I was not invited. But an hour after the demonstration began, Lydia called me. The prototype damaged the test tissue. I closed my eyes. Was anyone hurt? No, it was a synthetic model. What did Ethan say? He said the failure came from an outdated design your team left behind. That isn't true. I didn't think it was. The modified heating element had overheated the seal by 14 degrees. Ben had warned them in writing. Sloan had replied, the demonstration is visual, not clinical. Do not let perfection interfere with momentum. Lydia obtained the email during emergency due diligence. The funding round was suspended. Ethan called me that night. You told Ben to sabotage the demonstration? No. You encouraged him to create a paper trail. I told him to document a safety concern. You're coordinating with employees. He called me. You're violating your severance agreement. Then sue me. He went silent. He hadn't expected that answer. The following morning, Vantage filed a lawsuit claiming the company owned the patent through an oral agreement and years of investment. Ethan told the press that I was attempting to seize technology developed with company resources. Sloan gave an interview outside the courthouse. She cried while describing the stress on employees. We are fighting to protect a medical innovation from being destroyed by a private divorce dispute, she said. For 48 hours, they controlled the story. Then their attorneys filed what they claimed was the missing assignment agreement. The document appeared to transfer the NovaSeal patent to Vantage 6 years earlier. My signature was at the bottom. I stared at it on Serena's screen. I never signed that. I know. The font used in the signature block wasn't released until 2 years after the document's date. I looked closer. The signature resembled mine, but it had been copied from a regulatory filing. Serena hired a forensic document examiner. The metadata showed that the file had been created 3 weeks after my divorce became final. The author field contained Sloan's company username. But Sloan had anticipated that. She claimed she had merely scanned an older paper document after finding it in storage. Then Vantage produced a notary certificate. The notary was a former company office manager named Caroline Webb. Caroline signed a declaration saying she had witnessed my signature. For the first time, I became afraid. A false document was one thing. A cooperating witness was another. Serena asked, "Do you remember Caroline?" Yes, she left 4 years ago. Did she ever notarize something for you? Travel forms, maybe insurance documents? Could you have signed an assignment without remembering? No. Be certain. I would remember giving away the only patent I ever created. The case moved toward an emergency hearing. Vantage argued that the uncertainty was destroying investor confidence. We argued that the supposed assignment was fabricated. Ethan arrived at court with Sloan. They held hands while reporters photographed them. Inside, his attorney described me as a bitter former spouse exploiting an administrative error. Then Caroline testified. I watched Dr. Collins sign the assignment, she said. Where Serena asked, in the Vantage conference room, "On what date?" March 14. What time? Late afternoon. Who else was present? Mr. Cole. I whispered to Serena I wasn't in California. She looked at me. Where were you? Boston. 6 years earlier, on March 14, I had presented NovaSeal at a biomedical engineering conference at MIT. The event had been recorded. We produced the program, airline records, hotel receipts, photographs, and a video showing me answering audience questions at the exact time Caroline claimed I was signing the assignment in San Diego. Caroline began crying on the witness stand. I may have remembered the date incorrectly. Serena approached. Did you witness Maya Collins sign this document? Caroline looked at Ethan. The judge noticed. Ms. Webb, he said, answer the question. No. The courtroom became silent. Why did you sign the declaration? Mr. Cole said the original had been misplaced. He said Maya had signed it years ago, and they only needed me to confirm the normal process. Ethan's attorney closed his eyes. Caroline continued. Sloan told me no one would be harmed. The judge ordered the document preserved for investigation and refused to recognize Vantage's ownership claim. But he did not give me everything. Because Vantage still had an exclusive license, he allowed limited production to continue temporarily while the contract dispute was resolved. Ethan called that a victory. Sloan posted a video saying the court had protected employees from my attempt to shut down the company. Then Lydia requested a special board meeting. I attended as the patent owner. Ethan sat at the head of the table. Sloan sat beside him, though she was not a director. Lydia placed a stack of documents in front of us. We have 3 issues, she said. Patent, ownership, safety, compliance, and executive misconduct. Ethan interrupted. The patent issue has been resolved. The company retains its license. For now, Lydia said. The license prohibits false ownership statements and unauthorized financing. Our counsel disagrees. Your counsel also submitted a fabricated assignment? Sloan found that document. Every face turned toward her. Sloan stiffened. I scanned what I was given. By whom? Lydia asked. She looked at Ethan. Ethan said, This is becoming a distraction. Lydia opened another folder. Then let's discuss the safety test. Ben entered the room. Ethan stared at him. You were instructed not to attend. The board invited me. Ben produced the email in which Sloan ordered the team to proceed, despite the overheating risk. Sloan shook her head. I relied on the consultant. The consultant recommended additional testing, Ben said. You told me it would probably pass. I said it might pass after redesign. Ethan turned on him. You've always been loyal to Maya. Ben's voice was quiet. I was loyal to the product. Lydia displayed a series of messages recovered during litigation. Sloan to Ethan. Once the divorce is signed, Maya won't have leverage. Ethan. She doesn't know the patent assignment was never finished. Sloan. Then finish it afterward. Paperwork follows reality. Ethan. We'll say the company always owned it. Sloan. Exactly. She won't fight if everyone thinks she's emotional. I looked at Ethan. You knew. He said nothing. You knew the patent was still mine before I signed the divorce. You were compensated through company equity. That isn't an assignment. You wouldn't have a valuable patent without Vantage. There wouldn't be a Vantage without the patent. Sloan leaned forward. This is why Ethan left you. The room froze. She seemed to realize too late that she had stopped performing. You care more about being right than about what he built, she continued. He needed someone who believed in him. I looked at her. No, he needed someone who would call dishonesty ambition. Ethan stood. Enough! Lydia did not raise her voice. Sit down! He stared at her. She continued. North Coast will not fund Vantage while you remain chief executive. This is my company. According to the capitalization table, it belongs to many people. You're removing me because of my divorce. We're removing you because you attempted to falsify ownership of the company's core asset, misled investors, concealed a safety failure, and submitted a fabricated document in court. Ethan looked around the table. I built this company, I finally answered. We built it. He turned toward me. And now you're destroying it because I chose Sloan? No. You chose fraud after choosing Sloan. Those were separate decisions. The board voted. Ethan was removed as chief executive. Sloan was terminated immediately. She began crying before the vote was complete. She said Ethan had pressured her. Ethan said the forged assignment had been her idea. Within minutes, the two people who claimed to understand each other's ambition were blaming each other for every decision they had made together. North Coast offered Vantage a rescue financing package. But there was one condition. The company needed a valid long-term patent license. Lydia asked me to negotiate. I did not demand control of Vantage. I did not demand Ethan's house or his remaining shares. I required accurate ownership statements, independent safety oversight, overdue royalties, and permanent recognition of the engineering team that developed NovaSeal. I also required that the company never again identify Ethan as the inventor. The board accepted. Ethan did not. He called me one final time before signing the settlement. "You took everything." "I took nothing you legally owned. I lost my company. You lost the job of running it. You planned this when you signed the divorce. I planned to leave my marriage with dignity. You knew the patent would hurt me. I knew the truth would eventually require paperwork." He was silent. Then he asked, "Did you ever love me?" The question almost made me angry. Instead, it made me tired. I loved the man who helped me label prototype parts in my mother's garage. That was me. Yes. What happened to him? He started believing applause was proof of authorship. Ethan signed the settlement. Federal prosecutors later investigated the fabricated assignment and false notary declaration. Caroline cooperated and was not charged. Sloan pleaded guilty to submitting falsified electronic records in connection with the civil case. She received probation, community service, and a substantial fine. Ethan avoided criminal charges related to the document after accepting responsibility in the settlement and cooperating with the investigation. But the medical device industry did not forget what happened. He started a consulting business. It closed within a year. Vantage survived. Lydia asked me to return as Chief Technology Officer. I declined. "I don't want my life attached to Ethan's company anymore," I told her. "Then build your own." North Coast invested in a new company I founded with Ben and 3 former Vantage engineers. We called it Meridian Biosystems. I retained ownership of my patents and licensed them under clear agreements written by attorneys who completed every page. Our first project was not a replacement for NovaSeal. It was a portable sealing device for trauma surgeons working in rural emergency rooms. We spent 2 years testing it before making a single public promise. When the device finally received clearance, a reporter asked me whether my divorce had motivated me to start over. "No," I said. "Engineering motivated me. The divorce only reminded me to read every agreement." Vantage continued paying royalties for NovaSeal. Every quarter, a report arrived showing unit sales, licensing payments, and safety data. The first page always listed the patent owner, Dr. Maya Collins. I never framed the divorce decree. I never kept photographs from the courthouse, but I did frame one document. It was the original provisional patent application I filed before Ethan and I were married. At the bottom was the receipt showing the filing fee had been paid from my savings account. I placed it in the lobby of Meridian Biosystems. Not because I wanted visitors to know I had defeated my ex-husband, because I wanted every young engineer who entered the building to understand something Ethan learned too late. Ideas do not belong to the person who speaks about them most confidently. Promises do not replace signatures, and ambition never makes paperwork disappear.